Welcome back to Talk Manga Daily. Today we're covering Black Butler Volume 23, chapters 109 through 114, the start of the Blue Coat arc. This arc follows directly after the Emerald Witch arc, which was adapted into an anime during the spring 2025 season. If the adaptation trends or continues, this should be the next arc that we see adapted. We'll be going chapter by chapter through this volume. We're not going to retell every line of the dialogue, but you'll get enough detail to have a clear picture of what happens in each chapter. Think of it as a walkthrough and a discussion with some Talk Manga Daily thoughts sprinkled in whenever we notice connections to Ciel's greater journey, especially his search for the truth about his parents, or when bits of lore stand out. And of course, as always with this series or any other manga that we cover, there will be spoilers ahead. Let's jump in and let's have some fun with where this arc takes us. Chapter 109 is titled The Butler Fanatical. This volume opens up with Ciel asleep, watched over by a figure who is definitely the Undertaker. In fact, I will tell you this is where the Emerald Witch last anime episode for season 2025 ended. So you will have seen this before if you watched the Emerald Witch arc anime. And that's basically the opening of the Blue Coat arc panel. Anytime the Undertaker is around CL, it's always a mystery that deepens. So, but we do shift to Edward Midford at his estate, watering the garden and thinking about his duties as a Midford. His day is interrupted by Herman Greenhill. Yes, this name should definitely sound familiar. Is one of the disgraced Weston prefects. Greenhill apologizes for their past crimes and insists that he and the other prefects have changed. They now meet at the Sphere Music Hall, and they would like Edward to join. Edward goes on Saturday and finds the hall bursting with life, nobles, commoners, food everywhere. And this is interesting because they have nobles and commoners all in one particular location. Cheslock joins him, and soon as all the prefects are together again, they talk about radiance, knowledge, and fellowship, all while pushing Edward to relax. But the oddest moment comes when Edward notices Blavid, a fortune teller who reads the stars through drops of blood. Yes, he's using their blood or basically pricking their finger to get the blood in order to uh, tell their fortune. Edward, of course, declines a reading unsettled, but stays through the night. The event closes with a group sing along song, and even Edward admits it felt strangely uplifting. At home, he tells the family of the story, and Lizzie, of course, now wants to attend. Edward does promise to take her. Meanwhile, CL receives a letter from Queen Victoria. She's concerned about the Sphere Music Hall herself, noting basically noting her own agents went inside and never wanted to leave. As CL reflected on her words, Edward burst in, letting CL know that Lizzie has run away. She went to the Sphere Music Hall a couple of times, and I think after like the second time, she never returned home. Again, Edward burst into CL's mansion, quite frantic, and it starts to explain what happened. He first took Lizzie to the music hall a month ago. There she eagerly sat for Blavitt's fortune telling. Blavitt pricked her finger and declared she was under Canopus, a star linked to strong will and deep obsession. He even whispered that she was troubled about her fiance, and this, of course, is CL. CL's face on the manga panel is more like, hmm. Then Lizzie was shaken, and despite Edward's protests, she started returning week after week. Now she refuses to come home, insisting these are her words from the dialogue. My radiance lies here. Edward begins to beg CL for his help. CL, of course, is going to investigate based on the letter he equally received from the queen, but also now that Lizzie will not return from this place. So him and Sebastian agrees to investigate. They do attend the Sphere Music Hall where they enter and they notice that the atmosphere is oddly cheerful and free of social barriers. And again, that means that you have commoners and nobles that are commingling. Attendees describe it as a place to purify themselves. Of course, a couple of women walk up to them and they decide to start talking about the place and just sharing their experience with the place. but Sebastian finds it a bit unnerving, of course he does. Humans without envy or desire, he muses and he just thinks that the whole atmosphere is unbearable and dull. When they approach Blavin, of course, he is the man in the room, the center of attention because he is a fortune teller. He's shocked. He basically shocks them both without ever pricking Sebastian's finger. He says flatly, "You don't have the protection of any star. That's because you're not human, are you?" And the look on Ciel and Sebastian's face on the manga panel is wide eye and like, what? How could he discern this? How could he go directly to that statement? And he basically pulled Sebastian to the side and whispered that in his ear, but whispered it enough to where Ciel could hear it as well. Chapter 111 is titled The Butler of Thief. I believe this chapter starts to get more interesting, especially with Blavitt. This chapter opens with Blavitt's crowd manipulation in full effect. After identifying Sebastian as non human, he doesn't just dismiss him, he weaponizes the entire audience against Sebastian, calling Sebastian a collapsed star that devours radiance. Oh, that's actually a really great line. Uh, Great prose there. Blavitt turns what should be a mystical observation into mob psychology. We believe that Blavitt did a really great job of doing this. But of course, this is Sebastian that we're talking about him going up against. But this plays out. The crowd panics and demands Sebastian leaves, effectively removing CL's protection through social pressure. This is sophisticated psychological warfare, disguised basically as fortune telling on Blavitt's behalf. When CL sits down to have his own reading, we basically witness master level manipulation. Blavitt builds trust through accuracy, correctly identifying CL as protected by Sirius, noting his two-faced nature. But then he introduces the threat, of course. Of course, he introduces a threat. The darkness I glimpsed earlier is clinging to your light. He's literally referring to Sebastian's influence on CL's soul, but presenting himself as the solution as well. The expensive silver amulet isn't just a gift. Yes, he hands CL a silver amulet because, of course, now he's under Sirius. It's an investment in future control, basically, how he somehow will likely use this to control CL at some point. Notice how Blavitt also positioned himself as CL's spiritual protection or protector while simultaneously trying to separate him from his actual protection. This is cult recruitment applied to someone with supernatural knowledge. And what makes this psychologically brilliant is that Blavitt's warnings are technically accurate. Sebastian is dangerous to CL's soul. We know that. But instead of genuine protection, Blavitt offers manipulation disguised as salvation. The chapter ends with Sebastian's expulsion, yes, kicked out of the music hall, where his encounter with the stray cat reveals his genuine appreciation for simple pleasures despite his demonic nature. The humanizing moment occurs precisely when his supernatural natural identity had been exposed inside of the music hall, but adding complexity to Sebastian's character. Chapter 112 is titled The Butler Soloing, and this was after CL was kicked out of the music hall. Well, there's still events happening in the inside. So let's see what's happening in the inside in the music hall, because of course CL is still inside. So back inside, the hymn swell. The hooded figures remove their cloaks, and it's the four former prefects of Weston, yes, the prefects from the public school arc. And they are at it again. This time, they're an idol group known as the Starlight Four. They launch into an upbeat performance full of glittering lyrics about stars and radiance. Is that what we need to hear from them? Like, let's remember what the former prefects did. So to see them singing this time on stage, and the crowd is going, wow. Even Edward is stunned to see Violet, who never danced at Weston, now performing flawlessly. Could this be the radiance Lizzie spoke of? Well, we'll just have to continue to read the volumes to find out. But outside, Sebastian spends his time charming women at the bar, still collecting scraps of information. And no matter what's happening, Sebastian's always going to be on his job finding out what's going on. So later at the Phantom Hive estate, Edward and Ciel debrief. Sebastian, of course, sings the songs perfectly, having picked it up from a prostitute who heard it at the Sphere Music Hall herself. He explains how songs spread ideology more effectively than speeches, especially among the illiterate. CL wonders aloud, if the gatherings are free, bracelets are made of silver, and songs are sung to be catchy, what is the true cause? Sebastian hints at a secret closed event only open to those who received a bracelet from Blavid. And that might be where Lizzie has disappeared to. But let's see what chapter 113 brings us. Chapter 113 is titled The Butler Independent. Seal delivers his interim report to the queen. She reminds him that numbers bring power, commerce, religion, even war. And Gray shows him a roster of powerful figures who have now been drawn into the Sphere Music Hall. Back at home, Sebastian outlines the systems. Polaris events are on Mondays and Wednesdays, Vega on Tuesday, Canopus on Thursdays, and Sirius is on Fridays. So remember, Ciel was under Sirius. So his job is going to be to, of course, Ciel deems himself as the Queen's guard dog. So he will be in attendance the next time that this uh, Sirius meets on Friday. Disguises won't work. Blavitt can clearly see through them. So Ciel will definitely have to go as himself. The event on that Friday, CL changes into a strange costume and joins a small group of serious attendees. The Starlight Four performs, Starlight showers, and Violet singing softly as a projection turns on the ceiling that shows a starry sky. The atmosphere is soothing, almost drugged like. CL drifts off, even dreaming of Lizzie apologizing that she cannot save him. Outside, Sebastian encounters Inspector Aberline, who describes recent cases of corpses that look beautiful, untouched, and eerily lifelike. They range from commoners to nobles. Sebastian investigates and soon finds a dugout filled with corpses that's all too perfect. So he was totally in agreement with what Inspector Aberline himself had examined and noticed with the bodies. So this brings us to chapter 114, titled The Butler Assaulting. CL leaves the Sphere Music Hall disoriented, carrying sweets that Violet had kind of forced onto him since CL had fell asleep. And when he woke up inside of the music hall, he was feeling a little dizzy and kind of out of it, swimmy head, not like himself. So Violet gave him some sweets that would helpfully, I guess, bring his level back up, blood sugar level back up. Sebastian shares what he learned from Detective or Inspector Aberline with CL. He says that multiple corpses, pristine and drained of life, have been showing up in different locations around London. CL laughs at Scotland Yard needing the evil Earl, but takes the matter seriously. So Aberline did give Sebastian this message or have the conversation with Sebastian because he needed CL's help. So he kind of, instead of going directly to CL, he understood that going to Sebastian is equally going to CL. Back in the carriage, Sebastian noticed a puncture mark on CL's arm. Not poison, but something was taken or something seriously happened when CL fell asleep in the music hall. So, of course, they rushed over to Lady Sullivan, also known as the Emerald Witch, who's now living in London with Wolfram. After a comedic exchange about her new spider legs invention, she examines CL. Wolfram proposes the truth that nothing was injected into CO and he wasn't poisoned, but something was taken away from CO. His blood was drawn out. And Wolfram went into this whole explanation of things that he saw during the wartime that doctors used transfusions on soldiers to save their lives. It was a new method then, and it was in the process of being perfected. So, this could be a case where the Sphere Music Hall, something's happening at the Sphere Music Hall where they are harvesting blood from civilians. This could be very monstrous. We don't know why they're doing this, but Wolfram did settle on something of the matter is happening where they are taking blood, determining probably the blood type that they need, and sorting them based on things like Sirius and Vega, um, as in groups. And yes, CL's blood was taken. Sebastian notes the bitter irony. People thought they were attending for like free entertainment or a place where they could go and almost like confess their sins, but this was being done at the price of their blood being harvested. Ciel resolves to expose the scheme and show Elizabeth and others undeniable proof, but he isn't the only one on the case. The end of the story, the Grim Reapers arrive. Of course, Grell, annoyed about her manicure, and Othello from Forensics Dispatch because things are getting seriously out of hand with the corpses showing up. Their presence, of course, signals how grave the mystery has become. And the Blue Colt arc has begun in earnest, starting with volume 23. So these are our thoughts at Talk Manga Daily about volume 23. It's striking that the Undertaker's shadow lingers over the opening and that the theme of the radiance versus darkness runs through every chapter here. Ciel is being pulled into yet another layer of spectacle and manipulation, but the end goal never changes, uncovering the truth about his parents and the larger forces at work in London. The sphere feels like, less like a sideshow and more probably like another thread that deepens the mystery or a thread that is deep in mystery. This wraps up our walkthrough or overview of Volume 23 of Black Butler, the opening chapters for the Blue Coat arc. This arc takes us from old prefects reinvented as idols. We get to see Lizzie's troubling disappearance, to the shocking discovery that the cult or whoever's running this event in the Sphere Music Hall may be experimenting with blood transfusions, or at least they're harvesting blood from the attendees. This leads us down what will likely be a far darker path. With the Queen, Scotland Yard, and even the Grim Reapers now tied in, this arc promises to connect more threads of the larger mystery that we always see in Black Butler arcs. If you enjoyed this walkthrough and you want to continue with us through volume 24 and beyond, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and please feel free to follow. As always, keep reading, keep thinking, and talk manga daily with us. Thanks for watching.